Morning, citizens. Um, Another one of those rare, lovely mornings here. Although the mornings aren't so rare. Lovely mornings aren't so rare. The lovely days are. But it's always very nice here at 5 in the morning. Um, so I'm filled with foreboding, shall we say? Um, and this sense of foreboding has been inspired by um, once again by this guy that I follow on Twitter, or X, as we should say, I suppose there. Um, who goes by the moniker of Northern Variant, and he has a way of articulating my fears, which is um, particularly apposite. Um, and he's basically recently released one of his long posts about what's going to happen if and when Labour gets in. And I say if because one of the things um, we've all seemed to have accepted is the fact that Labour will get in or have a massive majority. Um, and of course, this would signal that hopefully the demise of the Conservative Party. But if that happens, you know, we're going in to some very, very grim times with the Labour Party. And as I mentioned in my last video, um, with such is the case with Iran, for instance, that everything can change very, very quickly. If you know any Iranians, I'll bet the only Iranians you know are people who left Iran in 1979, or are the children of people who left in 1979. You speak to these guys, and I know two particularly, and they kind of know how tenuous things are and how you can be safe one minute and running for your life the next. And this stuff is well documented. People who were friends and neighbours turning on each other because of the new regime, and probably because they wanted to um, signal a level of loyalty to the new regime, because it was dangerous if you didn't. And I'm talking about the fact that Labour are, the tail is wagging the dog. Um, as witnessed by that spectacle a couple of weeks ago of Angela Rayner in a room full of Muslim men, basically doing whatever she thought they wanted her to do. Um, and the the thing is that the the Muslim bloc vote has the potential to take over. They do have the potential to take over, and it has happened. Um, there are historical precedents for it. Iran, for instance. Lebanon is another example. Um, as I understand it, when Adolf Hitler came to power in 1933, he only had about 11% support. Um, and he was appointed by an establishment that they thought they could control him. Now, these things can happen very quickly, and a particular red flag for us is for Sadiq Khan to resign as London mayor in order to be able to become an MP. So once Labour's been in for a little while, the first by-election that comes up with a safe seat, if Sadiq Khan resigns as London mayor, that's what he's going for, because that cunt wants to be prime minister. You need to be quite clear about that. These people have ambition. If you thought Rishi Sunak was an affront to Britishness, to Englishness, and to white people in general, if you thought that, I didn't particularly, but I wasn't overly happy about it. But Rishi Sunak wasn't elected, and he was rejected outright by the Conservative Party membership, and still he became prime minister. And this chap, Northern Variant, he makes a point. He says that we are probably only 2 election cycles away from criticism of Islam as being against the law, a new blasphemy law. And as he also points out, that you'll be punished for it worse than a rapist is punished. Not that that's a very high bar these days, but you get my gist. And the Muslims are organised. I've been saying this for a while. That you have this situation, you've had this situation in the northern towns, in particular, where a particular prominent Muslim gets supposedly apprehended or arrested by the police, and hundreds of Muslims turn up, hundreds of them, and they vastly outnumber the police, and the police can't do anything. We have to take a page out of their book. This posse that I've mentioned a few times is, I think that's necessary. And when people are ready to make that stand and to take that risk, because it comes with a risk. I'll still be there. I mean, I haven't done anything, because I haven't had any support for it. But and it can't be down to one person. Everyone's got to do this. Everybody in every region of the country has got to do this. We are heading into some seriously dark times. We think it's bad. We think what's happened so far is bad. There's nothing to how it's going to be. Only yesterday I was watching a video of Keir Starmer meeting Sadiq Khan and wishing him Eid Mubarak, or whatever it is they call it. And it's just it's just pathetic toadying, and that little weasel Khan is is like a little emperor. He's sitting there. He knows he's got the Labour leader where he wants him. It's sickening, really. I think it was yesterday he released a post saying, you know, Happy Eid Mubarak to all the British Muslims, and talking about the incredible contribution of British Muslims to our society. And I'm not denying that there are people who have contributed positively. You know, um, there are people, but none of that cancels out the grooming gangs, and never will. We might get to a situation where it's not inconceivable to think that talking about grooming gangs, and the fact that I'm saying grooming gangs on this platform, well, may well flag me up to GCHQ, as a future troublemaker. I mean, that's possible. You know, they will be monitoring stuff like this. I'm just a minnow, but nevertheless, um, that Sam Mellier, he was a minnow. He's now in jail. I mean, the only bright spark in this is that the Europeans appear to have finally woken up to this threat. I mean, that would be ironic, wouldn't it? Having to be rescued by the Europeans after leaving the European Union. But there's some positive things happening in Europe. What's happening with uh, Marine Le Pen. You know, there was another person we were all encouraged to demonise, the nasty racist woman. You know, and I don't know enough about the French election, and it's puzzling that Macron had still a few years to go and he called this election. What? Why is that? You know, um, you can be unpopular in power for quite some time and not have to concede anything. I mean, I think he had till 2027. I think. Um, so he seems to be, giving up on purpose, and Rishi Sunak seems to be giving up on purpose. I haven't really quite worked that out. It is puzzling. What is certain is that if the Muslim takeover comes, and it is a very, very real possibility, and we have to be considered um, sort of lunatic fanatics to suggest this to other people, and we have to do that. And there's no time for politeness now. Um, there's no time to not appearing as an alarmist lunatic conspiracy theory. The luxury of not appearing like that is something we can't afford now. We have to just take it on the chin. Yeah, you say things like that. Oh, and Steve's going on about Islamic takeover again. Oh, fucking hell, boring. You know, we don't have the luxury of that not of people not viewing us that way. You know, after I read that post again, I'll try and put it in the description if I remember. After having read that post, I actually sent that to a few of my normie mates, which is something I never do. You know, because most of the time people don't respond to things like that. You know, they just get defensive, and it almost, it's a bit like when you're getting ready to go out somewhere, and you know your wife's getting ready, and she's getting ready. There's the outfit change, and the makeup, and you know, and all the rest of it. And if you try and hurry her up, she slows down. So it's a bit like that. No matter what the evidence you provide, the the stronger the evidence, the more they close down. And I haven't done my cashless society thing for a while, you know, partly because of the flipping weather. Um, but and you know, I do consider that to be a genuine threat, and that is still going on in the background. Um, but I believe that the Islamic takeover is the most clear and present danger to all of us. You know, we've been so complacent about this. You know, you'd have thought the grooming gangs would have woken people up. You'd have thought that, but they didn't. You know, and you know that in itself was alarming. That 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 they didn't produce a big enough response. And we still believed that you know the machinery of justice could deal with that. And reluctantly, of course, the machinery of justice did finally judder into motion, and you know lots of people were sent to to jail. But it's still going on, and it will continue to go on. And the it's like everything else. The only explanation of it being able to go on, because it could be stopped in the same way that the small boats could be stopped. They can be stopped. It's quite easy for them to stop if there was political will, but there is no political will. And there is no political will from our lefty establishment to come to the aid of underage working class girls, because they don't care about them, because they think they're all dirty little slags who deserve everything they get. That's what they think. That's what the establishment thinks of your daughters. And on a long enough timeline, and not that long either, it may even be the case that it will be considered extremist to object to such things. Now, people, appears, People sacrifice their children willingly to the COVID cult. Yeah, they did that, and they did that because they feared social ostracization. Ostracization. Um, that's being a social pariah was more avoiding being a social pariah was more important than the welfare of their own children. Now that's a terrible thing to have to say, and I hate saying it. It's a terrible thing to have to say. But if you want to make the leap from that to it being considered uh, somehow, what would you say, divisive, um, to not offer up your daughters to the local Muslims to do with her what they wish. Now that sounds like an extreme thing to say, and that it sounds like it's a provocative thing to say. But we're past the point of politeness. You know, our politeness has been used against us. You know, I mean, in this country as well. You know, the idea of English and British politeness is another weapon that's been used against us. You know, they're using our democracy against us. They're using our tolerance against us. They're using our sense of fairness against us, which is what they've done in all Western countries. And the other kicker is that they've managed to hook onto the self-hating British left who want to be seen as inclusive above everything else. Yeah, never want to be seen as uh, never want to be seen as in any way exclusionary. And as those people are in charge of everything, so policy goes that way. What's so frustrating about this is that so many people. It's not that they won't. It's not that they won't wake up because they have no idea of the threat that they're facing. They've got no idea. I mean, these people aren't just asleep; they're fucking comatose. I mean, there's scarcely any vital signs flickering. and they're concerned with the most banal and imbecilic things. You know, uh, so that post by Northern Variant that I sent to friends of mine, I'm gonna do that a bit more, because what's so what's so brilliant about his posts is that he um, he presents things in a way that's utterly feasible, um, in a way that most people won't even have considered. You know, this Muslim thing's just something over there, you know, and it's something you might have to worry about in, you know, you know, towards the end of our lives, you know, and shamefully as well, that's something that our children are going to have to deal with, and that we don't have to because we'll be dead by then. You know, I mean that's pretty fucking shameful anyway. Um, but but even if that wasn't enough of a threat, this stuff could happen soon. It could happen in the next parliament. Like I say, if Sadiq Khan resigns as London mayor, you know the game's afoot. You know that's what they're trying to do. Um, the other thing about this chap Northern Variant is he's very scathing of Farage and the Reform Party. Now he has his reasons and they're very well articulated. Basically, that he's saying that it's basically it's a one man band, and it is. And for all Farage's qualities, and they are many, he doesn't want to be outshone by anybody. So there's not a he doesn't have an impressive bunch of a dozen people who are proper details people around him. He just he says all the right things, but as as soon as one of his MPs says something that Hope Not Hate attacks them for, and of course that people are saying all sorts of things that maybe they mean, maybe they don't, maybe they're saying for a bit of shock. Um, but anybody who goes off script will be anybody who goes off script will be ejected. So, let's say in the best case scenario, and this is the best case scenario, he gets a dozen MPs. You know, within 6 months, five of those could be gone because of all the offence archaeology that people did. This guy said he didn't like Pakistanis 8 years ago. You know, and you know he as as ballsy as Farage is, he is still too timid. He's much too timid. Um, this one in and one out immigration thing is just ridiculous, a non-starter. We'll have 500,000 white British people who know what it is to live in a liberal democracy with the rule of law leaving, and we get 500,000 uncontrollable, unemployable, unassimilatable third world criminal savages coming here. That's not going to work, is it? You know, Yeah, I kind of want to vote for Farage. I want to, but for a starter, he needs to be bolder. He needs to be bolder, and he needs to put aside his distaste for people like Tommy Robinson and ally with people like him. This is the thing. Tommy Robinson, the longer it goes in, the more he's being proved right about everything. And more people are acknowledging that. And I mean, there's still a great rump of people out there who for me is beyond the pale. But he's the only person that has been telling the truth consistently about this. And he deserves credit for that because so many of us, myself included, took a long time to acknowledge that. And we didn't acknowledge that because he was demonized so badly in the press and in society generally. So one thing I would suggest is, this is it's difficult trying to get any positives out of this, but one thing I would suggest is that we all go to the next demonstration on, I think it's on 27th of July. Um, and and try and get over your embarrassment about asking other people to come. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that to people that I know will say no, but I'm going to ask them anyway. Mrs. X has just got up. She's coming down the garden. She looks sexy in her dressing gown. She won't be appearing on camera, I don't think. You know. Hello, baby. Yeah. So I'd urge people to do that. And this really is serious. As Northern Variant says, this could be we could be in the very last days of Britain being a liberal democracy. Are we really going to let it die on our watch? You know, I know that most of my viewers and followers are, just like me. They're the same age as me. We're in the second half of our lives. We sort of think that a lot of us think that there's nothing we can do, and we just have to fade away. But we have children, we have grandchildren. It's up to us to make a stand now. I mean, it's the most cowardly thing to just leave it to them. It's not okay. It really isn't okay. Particularly for us as men. Things are going to get ugly, very ugly, but they'll get a lot uglier if we do nothing. What did Churchill say about appeasement? It's feeding the crocodile in the hope that it'll eat you last. Well, it won't eat you last. It'll eat you first. The low-hanging fruit, the so-called far right. The appeasers are the self-hating British lefty establishment. They'll be the last ones to be eaten when their usefulness has been used up, and then they'll have no one to protect them. they think they're going to be safe because all those dreadful little racist oiks have all been put in jail. I mean, that'll be a kind of poetic justice, but we won't be around to see it. I mean, of course, we might, might be, it might be like in that scene in Shawshank Redemption where all the prisoners are watching the other ones come in, you know, and there'll be a certain satisfaction in seeing all the lefty intellectuals and lawyers, the human rights lawyers, and everybody else coming into prison. But it won't be that satisfying. It'd be more satisfying if we didn't let it happen. It's strange doing these videos now because you know, as you'll have noticed, I'm just doing rants to camera now. I mean, the threats are coming so thick and fast. You can't you can't defend yourself about particular against a particular threat. It's just a general thing now, and the nature of the general threat is that everything and everybody in society is against us. All of the institutions are against us. The media is against us. The politicians are against us. Quite a lot of your friends and neighbours are against you. For some people, for some poor souls, even their families against them. We only have ourselves and the people like us, the people who can see what's happening. Excuse the noise. They're coming very low in this because there's no cloud. Unusually. But there's no, as I've said before, repeatedly, there's no voting our way out of this. They've got that sewn up, you know. I mean, having said that, you know, I think we've all been gaslit into believing that the Labour Party are going to win big. But I mean, who says that? Who says? It's the lefty media say that. You know, they're it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They keep saying it enough that people believe it, and they say it enough that anybody who would vote against them won't bother. You know, and you know, I certainly don't blame people for losing faith in the political system. You know, there's another one of our institutions that is against us. But um, and you know, uh, despite my criticisms of reform, I guess it probably, you know, I don't know. I guess it probably is still the best option to vote for them because purely just because they're not Tories or Labour. Um, but I don't hold out much hope for their long-term development into a real political force. You know, it's a personality cult at the moment, and as I've said before, we can't have things led by personalities. in the end, you can't trust them. Not because they're particularly bad people, but they're only they're only human. You know, we need to have leaders who are interchangeable, so that as one leader gets knocked down, another one could be slotted into place. You know, and the machine carries on. But reform without Farage is nothing. You know, I mean, there's Ben Habib, who's quite good, but I can't think of anybody else. And even if there are any good, you don't hear about them because Farage is the only person they ever talk about. So the last demonstration, the Tommy Robinson demonstration, we can call it, and we should be unafraid and unapologetic um, by calling it that, was a genuine success. You know, it was a genuine success for media-friendly reasons, like there was no trouble. Um, and I think the police got found out by how they behaved at the St George's Day one, um, and they attacked the demonstrators at St George's Day, thinking that they would be lauded by the press for dealing with the far right thugs. And I don't think I think people are not believing that any longer. They're not falling for that any longer. So I think they felt they had to leave us alone. But it was a success, and there was no trouble, there was no mess. Everything was cleaned up. It was totally responsible. Um, there was plenty of non-white people there, for instance. Um, um, so we can do that again, and we we should make the next one bigger. And we need to start asking people, asking friends of ours to come along. You know, no matter how ridiculous that may sound, considering if you've got a load of normie mates like I have, it'll be a bit awkward. What, go to a Tommy Robinson demo? Oh, oh dear. No, I don't think so. But we've got to ask them, and like I say, I'll put this post down in the description. Show them that. Most people have no idea what's coming. No idea. The threat is real and it's immediate. It's funny, one of the reasons that I haven't been doing the cashless society stall is that my confederate who helps me along with it, he doesn't agree with me on the illegal immigration. I mean, we haven't discussed it in depth, but you know, I I kind of respect his right to disagree with me, and we're two separate human beings, so we're never going to agree on everything. Um, but I do think so much of this stuff is so interconnected. there is a massive overlap between all sorts of things. You know, the Islamic threat, um, the cashless society, COVID, the lockdowns, um, the you know the fiat currency Ponzi scheme, um, climate change. Basically, all of these things are, they build on each other. They basically build into an edifice of control. Financial control, moral control, um, control of people's movement. LTNs and ULEZ and low traffic neighbourhoods. So it's very difficult to keep this separate. Um, I mean, a friend of mine, he keeps trying to um, edge me towards looking at the Jewish question. And I'm reluctant to do that. But he did send me something recently that made me at least question my assumptions about things. Essentially the basis of it is that and of course this is what happens, is that it makes you disbelieve everything you've been taught, and then because you've got nothing to stand on, and the basic premise is that every society that's gone against the fiat currency Ponzi scheme, which is you know has often been promoted by the Rothschilds and that ilk, um, has been demonized. You know, the Germans, the Nazis, the Japanese, um, the pre-revolutionary Russia. The inference is that the the Russian Revolution was orchestrated by that demographic in order to punish them, because the pre-revolutionary Russia was actually doing rather well and didn't want to do this central bank Ponzi fiat currency stuff that everybody else was doing. I'm still on the fence about that. It's a thing that I don't really want to touch, if I'm honest. But maybe I'm just being cowardly by not touching it. But I know there's a lot of my followers out there, really want to get on board with that, with the with the Jewish conspiracy thing. Yeah, yeah. It's difficult to know what's true. It's difficult to know what's true. Historically, how do you know your dad's your dad? Because your mum told you so. I think one of the biggest obstacles to people's, becoming active politically is just the sort of social distaste for it. And this is something that Tommy Robinson, God love him, has never been afflicted with, not being middle class, being properly working class. He obviously doesn't give a shit about stuff like this, um, and perhaps neither should we. But resistance does matter. You know, I think so many people feel that without actually articulating it because they know that it sounds weak and cowardly. I think what a lot of people think is that they they don't say resistance is futile in that sort of, you know, movie villain sort of way, but that's what they feel. They say, well, I'm gonna use all these resources, all my money and time and effort, and they're just going to do it anyway. You know, but resistance does work. You know, if it wasn't for our resistance over the COVID stuff, none of this COVID shit would have come out. All the vaccine harms, you know, we'd already be living in a papers please society. We'd already be there. Um, you know, there are several low traffic neighbourhoods around the country that have been knocked on the head. You know, they have been stopped. You know, there's a guy online. I can't remember what his name is, but he's called the Mosque Bustler, and he has stopped a lot of mosques being built. You know, and the mosques are the first thing. That's the first thing for them to get a hold in an area. You know, you present yourself as a cringing minority, suggest, oh, well, we just want to worship on our own way. We'd like a mosque. You know, we'll pay for it. You know, amongst themselves, they pay for the mosque. You know, if they're particularly clever and the people in the officials in the local area are particularly stupid, they'll pay for it for them. Then they'll build an enclave, and then they get aggressive. Yeah, but resistance often makes no difference, but no resistance always makes no difference. And we have to remember that we are in the majority here. You know, I mean, most of the majority are, like I say, fucking comatose. Yeah, you can poke them in the eye with a stick and they still won't wake up. There's so many people like that. But either we wake them up or they do. And it's better for them if we wake them up, even though they don't bloody deserve it. But there is a movement, you know, it is increasing. There's going to be more strife, there's going to be more division, and that's something that can't be avoided. But the thing that can be avoided is not looking like a conspiracy theorist. You know, you can avoid that, you know, if you want. You can avoid that so that you can be socially acceptable and still be invited to dinner parties. You know, you can do that. That's so that you're not revealed as having low status opinions. You know, if that's important to you, then you can do that. But there's a cost to that, and that cost eventually will be offering up your teenage daughter when the time comes. Yeah. So which would you rather? You know, our society, for all its faults, for all its many, many faults, is worth defending. And societies like this are vanishingly rare, even in the world today, and historically even more so. You know, if we're not if we don't stop this and turn the tide, the idea of a free society will just disappear. You know, and it will disappear, and it will even disappear from the history books because nobody will. All the people who want control will not want us to remember that it was ever like this. You know, it'll be memory hole. I mean, they're already doing that, but they're already rewriting history. You know, changing the definitions of words. I mean, it's just flipping Newspeak, 1984 Newspeak, all, you know, exactly as George Orwell predicted. You know, they're pulling down the statues. You know, you know, laughably, there's adverts on the tube now saying that black women built this country. You know, it's so obviously not true, and it is demonstrably not true. But given enough time, it won't be demonstrably not true because there'll be no evidence to say that it wasn't true. It'll just be an assertion. I mean, I said, you know, the reason I do these, the reason I still do them, is so that there is a record, you know, and I save these videos. I save them to a hard drive so that they're not lost because one day they could just be lost. You know, you know, when the Islamist secret police come in, they'll be going through stuff like this, and then anything that's critical of them will be disappeared, and there'll be no evidence that I ever said it, or even perhaps even worse, there'll be plenty of evidence to convict me of Islamophobia, and then once I'm convicted and in jail, then the evidence will disappear. Yeah, but we have to resist this. There's no, it is a cowardly ne- neglect of ourselves, our forefathers, and our children and grandchildren to not do this. We need to stay free, and we need also to make sure, because they won't know, that our children and our grandchildren also stay free.